Sure does. There it goes. We've got it going. It's recording now, and I'll mute myself for the rest of the evening.
Bianca, are you leading the charge this evening?
No, I didn't think so. I would be very unprepared. There's Simon. There he is. I almost didn't let you in because your iPad 3 it looked suspicious. Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
I was trying to get in. I apologize if I'm late, which I obviously am.
That's okay.
Looks like we've got a pretty full house here. Few more minutes. We're missing Richard and Anna, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got a quorum. Let's start. It's 7:35. First of all, did everyone get minutes? And does anyone have any comments on the minutes, or can we have a motion to approve them?
I just had one small change towards the end. I had suggested to recommend Mayor to become our representative on the Western Connecticut Tourism Board, because she's got, expertise in marketing and is a member of our commission now. And I think it would be helpful perhaps in the future. I don't know.
So the comment
thing.
was that I said Bianca will investigate and report
Right,
back
exactly.
potentially with assistance from mayor. So do you want
Right.
that to be changed?
Yeah, yes, please.
Well, it's on the agenda tonight.
Well, what's the change you'd like?
It to state that I suggested to recommend to the BOS to have mayor possibly fill that position on the Western Tourism District Board.
Isn't that under
comes Richard.
unfinished business tonight?
Yeah,
Okay. All right, any other comments? Can we have a motion to approve, please?
Make a
I
motion.
so move.
Terrific, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Looks like that's done. Thank you very much. I don't believe we've received any communications this month. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda they want to add? Terrific. Okay. What I tried to do on the agenda this time was to sort of lay this out in terms of progress against the goals that we established a couple of meetings ago. Many of you were good enough to sign up to help us with individual goals. There are still several members who are not associated with any particular goals, and to the extent that they're not, I would appreciate it if they would become so associated, and perhaps they could either indicate their interest to me or in another way indicate which goals they'd like to be associated with. I think it's tremendously important that we've made our decision about what goals we want to pursue. The only way we're going to get any progress on those goals by having regular monthly reports on what progress has been made. And that's going to require each of us to actually do some work against these goals. With that, let's go to the first one. Our first goal is continue to execute the Buy Hire Local campaign. Bianca, you're going to give us an update on this.
I worked with Neil on that because he's doing the social media postings, and that's what we're going to utilize. I forwarded him a whole list of images from Laszlo, and we're hoping that Laszlo will produce more of local people at work, craftspeople, tradespeople, farmers, wherever he can catch them, because his imagery is so beautiful and it tells a really lovely story about Cornwall at the same time, and just makes people feel very proud about what they are doing and how they are an element of this community. So that's been going
Excellent.
on.
Good, that's helpful. Thank you. Is Janet on? No, she's not. Okay, for the next developing free Wi-Fi in Cornwall Village, we had quite a long discussion on this last time in terms of where the free Wi-Fi actually exists and how far it extends in the various places that it is, which I think were mysteries to most of us on this call. So with that, I'll pass the mic to Gary just to give us the quickest of updates.
Great. Thanks, Simon. I met last week with the tech representative who did the install in West Cornwall, and we visited Cornwall Village. Questions are, do we do a separate installation of an on town hall to emanate out to the town green, or is it possible as well to leverage the Wi-Fi that already exists in the library? Both are options, and we're going to look at both of them from a cost perspective, practical perspective, and then follow up further.
And I think we also talked about the idea of trying to get some sort of map or something out as to where these hotspots were. I don't know if anything's
I
been
saw
done
that
on
note on here. I'll address that from a personal perspective of, I don't see the reason for that. If you're looking for an optimum hotspot map and you're not in an optimum hotspot location, then you can't see the map.
That's true. That's a very fair
So I
point.
think we would, in simple terms, we would be putting effort and energy to do something that doesn't have much use.
But it's something we could put on a kiosk or somewhere for people to look at, which might be helpful. Anyway, I think it's worth thinking about.
I thought
because our discussion.
Sorry, I thought, Simon, that your idea was that there would be for at a public access town Wi-Fi that there would be a sign positioned in a couple of places so people knew it was available. So that if people sort of go to the farmer's market for instance, and that's an area where there's local Wi-Fi available, there'd be a sign that informs you of that without having to look at your device.
I think we discussed both, both ideas, and
I see.
both,
Okay.
both would be helpful. Sorry, either would be helpful. Both would be terrific, I think. But anyway, that's my view. Because I think, again, you know, if you think back to our discussion last week, very few of the people on the call had any idea where the hotspots actually were, and we all live in Cornwall. Need to know that. Okay, that's terrific. Thank you. Moving to number 3, develop spring and summer events, the 12 days of Christmas and spring or summer event. Mayor?
Hello. Yeah, I've had a couple, my cat comes to meetings. Sorry about my cat tail. She's very attached.
Very welcome.
I've had a couple of, one-on-one discussions with Bianca, Jane. Actually, Richard Schlesinger had just as a non-committee member, had some enthusiasm about a summer event, and I chatted with him recently as well. So I think that, I'm not sure where you want me to start, but I think that there seems to be a lot of good support for the idea of some kind of summer event that would bring not only as a priority all the businesses together to do a special day, and obviously all of the details would have to be worked out, but with the businesses in mind, that also adds in music as part of the appeal, maybe local historian offering a walk, maybe the electric bike place offering a bike tour. I think there's a lot that we can do, and a lot of enthusiasm for it. So I just sort of started talking to people, but I do think we need an official subcommittee to be able to really further develop this idea, and how far we want to kind of go with it in terms of different things that we can offer in a given Saturday in July or August or whatever we decide. I also, speaking of timing, Bianca has been very good about sharing all sorts of dates with me that in our lovely little tiny town has a lot going on. So we have to sort of figure out what an ideal timing is for something like this as well. I
think those are all good points, particularly regarding the subcommittee. Gordon, who's just unfortunately vanished. I think is going to talk about how we can do that subject to the rules. And again, to remind everyone on the call, we have to be rather careful. 2 of us can talk or communicate between each other. More than 2 is a problem. Gordon, perfect timing. Can you hear me?
I did hear you. Yeah.
Great.
I mean,
We've now hit a question of how we can put together a subcommittee to discuss the idea of a summer event without breaching the regulations surrounding the commission.
I mean, a subcommittee, you just appoint a subcommittee and then have to post when they meet 24 hours ahead of that, with the town clerk, and then minutes have to be taken of the meeting. If it's a virtual meeting, it has to be posted 48 hours ahead. But as we are getting in a better place, you probably can do it in person, which is less cumbersome than doing these. So that's the deal. If somebody has a great idea, like say Mayor has a great idea of a music festival on the green, you can send out one-way communications all you want back, but what you can't do is say, hey, then you come back and say, well, my brother plays in a reggae band and $500 will do it, and then Mayor comes in, well, let's do it. So you can't have this discussion where you make decisions, but if somebody has ideas, especially if this is an idea group, you can send all the, you can communicate one-way communications. You can't have discussions where you have a quorum that otherwise does business and does stuff. But if people, especially this type of organization, which is supposed to be bringing in information wants to bring information and send it out one way, that's fine. And also you can call special meetings of this whole group if you feel you're at that point. But basically, I mean, the mantra is you have to, because we're a public organization, got to do the public business in the public eye. And people have to be aware that those meetings are being taken place, and the legal requirement is to file them with the town clerk, the agenda ahead of time. And the custom is then to put something out on the website so people know that's happening. And basically it says time, date, location of the meeting, and what you're proposing to talk about.
May I ask a question, Gordon, just for
Sure.
absolute clarity? I do understand, of course, the guidelines to make sure the public is aware of these types of meetings. But for example, if we did decide to have a subcommittee of 3 or 4 people or whatever that is, and we decided to meet at the union or somewhere, would we have to record it, or would minutes be enough?
In-person meeting, I believe, do not have to be recorded. And because it's interesting, I mean, we could talk, it could be a whole another meeting, but I just attended a meeting today with all of the council of small towns. So you had 20 towns talking about how are you dealing with meetings in this age of, waning pandemic, but also much more participation in town boards and commissions and activities with remote access. And so there's some towns saying we're just going back to in person, which means that you have to be there in the room when it happens, or else you don't know what happens until you get access to those minutes. I think our town would like to maintain as much remote as possible so people can see that. It also enables people, if they aren't in town, to participate in a board. But basically a working group probably isn't as necessary, and that we're going to have to decide as a town, commission by commission. Basically people are saying, the big commissions that have big budgets and make a lot of decisions are going to be having remote access, for the foreseeable future. Smaller boards that don't have big budgets or big controversies or big fan base probably can do more in-person stuff. So I hope that helps. And I'll be glad to help you guys through any way that we can. But I think it's, it's important, because the problem is if you do this, if you don't do it right, then somebody can complain, and then whatever work you've done is then voided because you haven't done it right. And plus there's a loss of public confidence, because what are you doing in that meeting? And you're probably doing good stuff, but people don't know what you're doing. Then they assume you're doing something bad, which you won't be. But anyway.
That applies to regardless of how many members of the commission are involved in that meeting. I mean, suppose there were only 2 members of the EDC on that.
I don't know that. I mean, there's something about getting a quorum together too. Obviously, you have more than a quorum.
Yep.
That's more important.
Okay.
If you have one-on-one, there's a little more latitude. But especially if you're going to make some recommendations or things to the whole board and exercising some authority, you want to do it right. If you just gather information, it's a little looser. But if you're actually putting that information together in a proposal, it should be posted.
Is that workable for you, Matt?
And the also thing too is people do not have to have minutes. Can be very brief. It can, right. And I can give you, because I sometimes are cast in the role of a temporary secretary. My minutes are very brief. It's when did you meet, who showed up, and what action did you take. You didn't have to say, Gordon said this, somebody else said that. It's what did you do? What motions were passed? What results? And you can make them real short and real succinct. We tend to go longer because some of our issues are complex, so we put a little more dialogue in it. But you can do a really short shorthand version of that too and be absolutely appropriate.
Neil?
Thank you. Neil?
I was just wondering if a smaller group of people get together just to brainstorm an idea to then bring to the larger group, but no actions taken at the meeting. It's just sort of like getting some heads together. Is that allowed?
Well, just by getting your heads together probably starts the process when you are making decisions, because unless you're just talking idly, you're probably going to refine your ideas to some things. So I think it's cleaner, it's better, it's more less inconsistent. It's consistent to post these things. And it's different. I mean, it's different than your private business or the Chamber of Commerce, where you can do whatever you want to do. But as soon as you step into the public sphere, I mean, Neil has the advantage too that he's not on the committee, so he can talk to anybody he wants anytime. It's all good. So I mean, and any member can talk to anybody they want. But as once you start getting a group together, you get, you know, that's the standard, and of course we do our best to stick to it.
Makes sense. Anything else you want to add, Mel?
And how does a group like that get put together? Would that happen at a meeting like this one?
Yeah, but your committee would form a subcommittee with a purpose of doing this. What you don't want to do is form a junior EDC. You're going to have a specific task to investigate summer events or music in Cornwall or whatever you're going to do. You're going to have a task that committee with doing something, and it could be a standing subcommittee, or it can be something that you know, you can have a short, you know, you can have a couple month period time, and then they do it. They're done.
So can we already make a motion to form a summer event subcommittee? Is that a motion we make right now?
I'll second that.
Okay.
So the answer is, yeah. Well, why don't you extend the notion to the people who should be on the subcommittee?
I mean, I've had one-on-one conversations, recognizing the rules. But I guess that maybe by a show of hands, do we want to raise a hand if you're interested in being in the summer event subcommittee? It could be a fall event, by the way. if it ends up being a fall event, so maybe we should just say
seasonal event committee or something.
Yeah,
Seasonal event, I like that, that's good.
seasonal event committee. Bill, Bianca, myself. Can I raise my hand?
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Gordon, is a non-committee member able to be on the subcommittee? You know, because like Park is
Sure.
planning some activities and
That's fine. Yep, this is fine. That's all
Yeah, I
good.
would
Especially
actually-
somebody, yeah, that's fine.
because the Park and Rec wouldn't mind working with you guys because we've got some stuff planned for the summer. So
Yeah.
probably
That
get-
would be that'd be great.
That's a great idea. No, we wanted to reach out to Park and Rec for sure. So I know there's already a lot going on. And I mean, the one thing to be clear, and I guess we can, once the subcommittee meets and we have the official meeting on the calendar and we take minutes and all of that stuff, you know, we can clarify it. But I think one difference between my basic understanding of some of the Park and Rec events is that the music or the picnic, the music, you know, it's more of a community gathering, and that's lovely and fun, and it should certainly happen. But this event is more about drawing people from surrounding towns and, you know, besides residents and visitors to really come to Cornwall for a reason and to do, you know, buy and visit all of the local establishments. So it's more about driving traffic to the businesses as well.
right.
I have a question. Mayor, would this subcommittee be able to work to develop the events calendar, perhaps, like a general events calendar that could presumably be posted and used in conjunction with the social media and websites and so on? Is that something that would be appropriate to this committee?
I think when you say events calendar, you mean the Cornwall events outside of EDC events, or?
Well, for those who haven't all been in the one-on-one conversations and so on, there's been some talk about putting together a calendar of events and trying to develop events. And the summer event would be one of those,
Right.
or spring event. The bigger picture is to develop a calendar that would encompass a whole bunch of events, some of them EDC, some of them Parks and Rec, but just to have one, really thorough calendar that lists all these things that could be publicly available on various, on the websites, on social media, in print. Could this be like part of this committee developing that calendar? Is that appropriate to it, or a separate committee?
I think there is actually a calendar on the website that is based on, it's an event, a Cornwall event calendar. It's been in existence for a long time, and I think it's based on the Chronicle and what we submit to the Chronicle, and things get posted there.
Right. I was thinking that it would be good to have an events calendar that draws in. There are many events that, for instance, the library has a bunch of events. The garden club has a lot of events. They're the bigger events, the sort of once a year type events and so on, and that it would be a convenient sort of face of Cornwall in a public place to show that there's more going on. If we pulled all of these different events into one place, maybe it may just mean updating the one that's there much more thoroughly and often. I mean, maybe that's all it takes. Somebody somewhere has to pull it all together to get them all on there in a timely fashion, I think.
I think that'd be really good to get like the big events, because I just talked to Maggie Cooley, for example. The rummage sale is coming, is going to be back on in last week in July, and then you have Rose's show, you have the Clayway, you have the WAG, the 5K race, the Ag Fair. There's a garden. Blooms and something from the library. There's a bunch of different things.
Memorial Day.
Different things that are out there that are, that draw. I know there are people that come a long way to come to some of those events already, and it would be good to at least start out by seeing what's there and what are the holes in the calendar right now, in addition to the traditional ones that are there, because a lot of those tend to be on the same date or the same time every year. And one thing, just as a point of history, which take it or leave it, in the early days of the Economic Development Committee, they did a big Cornwall Day thing on Columbus Day weekend. For whatever reason, that weekend, which has probably one of the biggest traffic people coming through Cornwall, there's nothing organized historically in Cornwall. The Economic Development did do it for a couple of years, but that is low-hanging fruit, or easy to get people there, because I think a lot of people also is like I think the Clayways also in that time of year, and Mohawk has a thing, and the 5K race is the weekend afterwards. So that seems to be like an obvious day that is we're under open. We're not receptive to all the people that are just streaming through town at that particular time. So I will just throw that out. And the committee had signs and publicity and events and they had merchant, open houses and yard sales and stuff in Cornwall Bridge and West Cornwall, with this huge traffic. And with the restaurant opening up again, I just think things are going to be. That seemed like that's an easy one as far as trying to get people to town because they're already here. But that's just
Simon, could you ask for a motion? Let's just try and get the subcommittee formed with the folks who volunteered to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be delighted to support that Who's going to second it?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So
Thank
did
you.
everyone have a chance to raise their hand who wanted to be on the subcommittee? No?
Get
Jane.
me, if we can
Yeah.
incorporate the calendar.
That sounds good.
That's great. And I
Thank
think having a clear social calendar without the sort of the town government dates mixed up with it, which would be much easier to read, would actually be very useful too. Great. Has anyone got anything else to add to this? Neil?
Yeah, I just wanted to build on what you were saying, Gordon. In addition to the retail and food, events are our product that we have for the town. So I think cultivating events in general is incredibly important for us. I'd mentioned to one or two of you, one of the big events that we have every year is the Great Mutt Show. That this year, that event is going to Lakeville. It won't be in Cornwall anymore. So, you know, I look at that from a product point of view as a big loss. And, you know, I see the opportunity for this committee not to only be about a summer event or a fall event, but to cultivate events and connect with all the other committees. To your point, to know what the calendar of very big events are that can bring in visitors. And again, as an example, get the Great Mutt Show back for 2023, because that brings people into town that will then go to retail and to restaurants. So events are our product. I see the opportunity for the subcommittee to be larger than just one event.
Do we know
I'm
why
on-
it's?
I'm under the belief, though, I do have a belief that the Great Country Mutt Show is in Cornwall in June.
It's
No.
it's been advertised.
It's in Lime
Lime
Yeah.
Rock.
This year.
It moved this year.
They said they moved up there because they wanted to have more room to spread out or something, not knowing how COVID's going to play out, but I think they would be open to moving it back if things calm down. So, good point, Neil.
Thank you.
Comment, if I can.
Jen?
No, oh, okay. Just to follow what Neil was saying about events, I don't know if this is quite the right place to put this in, but we had mentioned a couple events previously, and maybe we should have a little list of events that might be worth pursuing and developing for some of these time slots that Gordon was saying, or other times. I know when I mentioned the house tour, that was sort of shot down, but I realized it could take a year to plan it. So it might be worth putting that back on, you know, something to discuss, because I think it's a very good event and it was a very successful event when it happened. And then the other idea that actually my husband mentioned, and he's gone to these in other towns, which could be a very good event for Cornwall, is a plein air watercolor event where you invite, you know, you send out an invitation for people who want to do plein air painting to come. Host artists put them up in their homes and they stay for a weekend or however long. They go out and paint every day. And then at the end, it's nice if you can put together a little exhibition. Bianca, you have a space. I'm talking to you.
Well, it's funny, we've done that before, because that, I think, going way back into the 90s, there used to be sort of like a paint the town day. And I think we picked that up with, I think the celebration of the bridge, or I think the 275-year anniversary. I think we did actually have a paint the bridge day and a paint the town day, where we did exactly what you're speaking to. And one was actually organized together with the EDC. Melissa Andrews was very instrumental back then to that. And I think that goes back to the bridge. It was the anniversary of the bridge, and we pulled together quite a few artists from elsewhere who came and had an exhibit back then in the Pottery Building, because our space was occupied. But yeah, I'm always open for that.
They can draw a lot of people if you
Yeah.
publicize.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And if I may, just to add some context, and now that we have a subcommittee, it won't just be me brainstorming inside my own head, or, but if we think about this event, this there could be like a menu of activities throughout the day. And I did think about how there's so many artists in Cornwall, and we want to draw people to West Cornwall as well as Cornwall Bridge. And you could have a watercolor, learn to paint the bridge by local artists, would sort of on the menu of activities of that day, you can do fun things like that. So at 1 o'clock, you learn to paint the bridge from the local watercolor artists, and at 2 o'clock there's music, and at 4 o'clock there's a bike tour or whatever. So I think there's a lot of opportunity if you think about like a whole day of event, of activities within this big umbrella event. There's so much potential.
Bill?
I also think that I could be wrong here, but I don't think we should sort of think of it as a single summer event, right? I think that there's I mentioned that the Iron Bank's interested in the tennis tournament, and I will help shepherd that, and I'll talk with you a little bit more about that, Mayor, in the subcommittee now. I also sort of spoke with them about, and also Harold, about a potential fishing tournament in the fall. That's a little more complicated for some reasons, but it's something we should sort of chat through in the subcommittee, because I think it's another sort of resource that is a good one, and something that's a good generalized interest that we should be looking to lean on a little bit more than we do.
All great ideas. Thank you very much. Okay, on to number 4. First one is support the town website. Jane?
Well, I haven't yet been able to meet with the website committee because they haven't quite figured out when and where they're going to meet, but it's soon, I'm told. I have spoken to Rocco and he made a few changes, but there are a few more changes that have to be made just to get the .org site working a little more easily to find minutes and agendas. So anyway, I'm waiting to talk to him in person and them about that. The more overriding idea, and Neil and I have spoken about this, I'll give him a chance to explain his ideas about it, was to take the Explore Cornwall, Consolidate Cornwall, and the Buy Hire Local Cornwall sort of campaigns and kind of consolidate them under the heading of Explore Cornwall, because at the moment there's not really a lot of separate information in those different campaigns. And the Explore Cornwall Explore Cornwall can easily promote all of those things. And Neil has worked up a kind of a mock website of how that would work, which looks excellent, I think, and much more dynamic and up to the moment. It would still be linked both to and from the .org website. So in other words, somebody goes to .org, they click on Explore Cornwall, it's going to take them to the Explore Cornwall site, which is aimed much more at visitors, people who are not already here. Whereas the .org site is really pretty much for residents who want to know what's going on in government things and so on. So that's kind of the overarching idea. We talked a little bit about whether there should be monies paid for social media advertising or not. My personal feeling is that the only thing I really like about social media is that it's free. So I'm always a little slow to want to pay them. But there are a number of new magazines that are opening that are very sort of pick up and keepable. And they are all offering, well, under some circumstances, they're offering good deals on their advertising, I think, because they're launching. And it seems to me it would be good. This is a little off the website thing, but it might be good to consider, if we're going to do some advertising, to consider some of these magazines. There's Litchfield magazine. They're launching a new one called Millbrook magazine, which I think in some ways, if we could come up with some kind of, this is in the buy, hire, local mentality, what would, if we were to have an ad for Cornwall, in other words, just something that put Cornwall in people's minds, what would that look like? And is that something we should consider putting in Millbrook Magazine and Litchfield Magazine and Main Street Magazine, Edible Nutmeg? There are all these things that are lying around, people traveling around, pick them up and look at them. Obviously, if we can get stories published in those magazines, it's all the better. So maybe we can put a call out for that, because that's always the best. So that's really it. I think, Neil, if you're there somewhere, maybe you can tell them a little bit about what you had in mind for the Explore Cornwall website.
Sure. The Explore Cornwall site, we talked a little bit about at the last meeting, just following the best practices of other destinations. Litchfield being a great example. They just launched their .com last month, and they have a .org for locals. The .com is for visitors. And the idea is simply a very user-friendly single scroll site that folks can use on mobile, that highlights all the places to shop, eat, houses that are for sale, Airbnbs and hotels that you can stay in, all very simple and direct. And the content will link back to some of the really great content that is on the .org site.
Sounds like something we should all be looking at.
I could share my screen. No, I can't. Bianca, if you know how to let me share my screen, I can show
That
you
was
them.
one of the questions. Remember way back, where would that be? Under more?
Probably near where
Share
you
screen here. There we go.
Great.
Cat.
Does
Sorry,
that work?
I got a cat attacking me.
Share.
Not yet.
No, that.
You're sharing your screen.
Oh.
You need
Sorry
to.
about that.
You just if you can enable
Stop.
me to share my screen.
How does that? You did that last time so beautifully, and I didn't
Do you
do
have to be a
anything.
Do you have to be a co-host to share your screen?
Not typically, but I don't know.
Remember, when you
last time.
press share screen, the host press share screen, it says multiple people can share. The host has to click that.
Okay,
Thanks, Mayor.
so I click that.
Do you see when you press screen share, there's a few options that come up, or no?
No, not on my end.
Huh. Because it should say allow multiple people to share. It's an option under share screen. Maybe Simon?
You're speaking to an
No.
absolute neophyte Zoom here.
Well, I can assure you it looks good. User-friendly. And what else can I tell you? We didn't.
Neil, do you want to explain what you were going to talk about? Oh, hang on.
So the
Yeah,
sorry.
No, go ahead, Bill.
It's the idea that this is you've basically sort of built the sort of the core architecture of a new site that will
Now
replace.
you could do it.
Great. It's really up. Yes, I can do it now. Let me get rid of all these animals.
Too many cats on the Zoom.
So
Oh, well done.
here it is, and it's a single scroll website for, and I will go back. I know I'm going a little quick now, for anybody on mobile, and you can jump around depending on the navigation on top. So for example, stay is our 3 hotels and all our Airbnbs, and every single one of these links out to where it is. So you can book everything right here. And it starts with our main nav. All of this content is from the existing .org site. So a little bit about our town. And then it starts with explore. I should actually update this image now that it's not snowing anymore. And as you can see, all of these are clickable. So, that one about skiing, it clicks you right back to the .org and all the content that was here for outdoors. So we're still really using all of that site, all of that content. And then once you get down to, shopping, for example, it clicks you down to our site where it says shop. So again, it's all one single scroll, all the content is here. It's just, you don't have to keep going back up, going through the navigation. We have our hiking trails, what happens in spring and summer, all the events that we were talking about, the Run Wag, the Clay Way, the 12 Days of Christmas, the Ag Fair, Open Studio, and I did add Music Mountain. I just got the schedule yesterday. All of our shops, everything in alphabetical order. They all click to those individual websites, our 2 farm stands, all the places to eat, all the places to stay. Live is all the places that are for sale right now. And then some press is some stories about us that's been in the press. So that's the site. And again, you could use the top navigation to jump around to places really easily.
Looks terrific.
I really like
Thank you
that.
for doing all this.
So just, it's simply an update to the existing Explore Cornwall, Connecticut site that doesn't have that much content on it right now. And it really pulls all of the visitor relevant content from the .org site just into one place, and it pushes all the other stuff that's for locals and town government and all that stuff, leaves it on the .org. This is just visitor information.
I think it's terrific. How are you going to keep on updating?
I've just been doing that, weekly myself, just, watching what's going on in the .org, talking to a bunch of you. I've been talking to Janet a lot just to find out who's opening, who's closing. And I think, Jane, if you're the liaison to the .org site, as they get information, if they can mutually share, that would be helpful too.
I must say, adding Jane's idea of a separate sort of event calendar to that website would also make a lot of sense.
Right now, it just has the big events, Gordon, that you were mentioning, like those big events that would bring visitors here, and then there's smaller events which are on the calendar on the .org.
I think you got a question for Simon.
Arnon?
Sure, please.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would just say, Neil, that I think that looks awesome. I've been doing a lot of digging, kind of unrelated, through a bunch of different towns' websites. And first of all, I was struck by how our existing .org is considerably cleaner than a lot of our neighbors' .orgs. And so the fact that we're just taking it to the next level seems awesome. One thing that I did notice, Harwinton's EDC operates a page that has available commercial and industrial properties. Now, obviously, Cornwall's not an industrial center of any sort, but and it might not necessarily be the right place on the new tourism website, but maybe on the .org, it might be good to have a landing page for when we're talking about trying to bring people to Cornwall and we're saying, look, here to live here. These are spots where you're zoned to do X, Y, and Z. That might be a good connecting the dots for prospective new residents.
Yep. That's
Good, thank you.
You could put in there too that Cornwall does permit home businesses, because I'm struck by the amount of people that have moved here. Almost all of them are working out of their houses in some way. So, I mean, however you want to throw that out, that you don't, I think that's a great idea, Arnon, thinking about it, take it to the next step. How are you going to actually work here? Well, you can work out of your house, and that just has a lot of benefits to somebody, that all of a sudden you don't have to buy a separate building. If you can work in your house, you just buy the house. Or the garage.
Yeah, or the garage. That absolutely.
Barn.
Terrific. Well, that's great. Thank you. I think that pretty much covers number 2B, strategy for Explore Cornwall. 4C, purchase social media. Neil, I think you've covered that already. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just think, once the this site is up, I could bring, point of view if we should purchase any social media. To Jane's point, it's really nice that social media is free, but we all know, when you look at your feed, you kind of see the same 25 people because the algorithm works in such a way that you don't really see everything. So at some point, it might be nice to have a very small little effort to help drive people to the site and see if that works. It could be a $50, $100 thing. We're very narrow to start, but I could bring a recommendation once that's ready.
Can I ask one question? Neil, I spoke with Harold, who runs the Housatonic River Outfitters, about doing
this. Again, Harold is, just by the way, Harold, the fly shop is closed. Anybody hasn't been by there today, Harold is gone. The Housatonic.
Well, he's still in.
Well, the building is gone, right?
Yeah. So, but he's still looking to operate his business, regardless of that particular piece of real estate. But I had spoken with him a couple of weeks ago, just about doing the fly tying for TikTok. Remember, I mentioned that in the last one. It seems like he has done that kind of thing before and was very comfortable talking about tying flies and filming it. So I'm going to sort of hook you guys up, and hopefully you guys can take it from there.
That's great. Thank you. And he's still been posting very actively on social too, I've noticed.
Yeah.
Do we know what's happening to his building at this point?
Well, that
was hoping someone would know.
Well, that building was purchased by Joyce Seaton, who unfortunately passed away. So I think it's in flux.
Fine. Thank you.
I think it's actually being developed into an eatery, coffee shop, multi-purpose space at this point.
With music,
her husband has decided that he wants to fulfill her wish and dream going forward. So, and he's going at it as he goes. So there's something percolating down there, which is great. I mean, the more places we have to keep people in town is really important, and food just does that. One thing in regard to sort of getting the news out about Cornwall, I think maybe if we do advertisement in these magazines and highlight the website with these scan codes, as I put them on the historical maps too, I think that might be a good way to get more people interested, because if you have a scan code somewhere, you're curious, what is behind that? And I think that could bring more people to especially the visitor side too, and more interest to Cornwall again.
Good. Thank you. Oscar, anything on the economic indicators?
I first would like to have a motion to not ever have to follow Neil in a meeting again after seeing that website. No, that was very impressive, and it's actually got me already my wheels turning a bit about how we think about this metrics and sort of success calculator, because I've been coming at it from much more of a statistical and demographic approach, which I think, just even in the last hour, hour listening to everybody, I think may be the wrong approach. So much of what we've talked about is events and foot traffic and, internet, social media hits. And it also jibes with, I have something prepared, but I now think it might even be worth viewing, but I think that the problem I've been running into is just the stale nature of the data, the inability to really access town level, zip code level. Some of it's there, some of it's not. And it's already a lot of data that exists that people are already aware of, whether it's new residential building permits and the like. And the more that I hear people talk on this committee, I think I'm barking up the wrong tree. And maybe I'll pause there and see how people react to that. But
I think it's useful information.
I mean, not to speak out of turn, but when Bianca was just bringing up before the idea of putting the QR codes on various physical advertisements we have out there, the very first jumped into my head. That's a good idea because that can give us a metric for something that's very hard to measure and gauge with.
And so much, you're right. So much of what I'm looking at is backward looking. And it's sort of statistical and hard data that, it's interesting, but I think what, where we're going with this committee is all about driving interest and attracting, traffic into this town, whether it be through events or through the history or through the artists or through the sites. And then, there's a real disconnect between what I've been focused on versus what I think the sort of focus and the hopes and dreams of this committee are.
Well, I would like to bark up the tree a little bit if you prepared something and put thought.
No, I mean, I simply, I'm happy to show you. I mean, I just put a quick bullet point thing on. Gonna make sure I have 4 screens on my computer, so I have to make sure I don't do the wrong one. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
So I started out by thinking sort of through both residential and commercial, and then breaking each of those silos down into what I thought we could access, and then looking for sources to find that information.
Mm-hmm.
Some of which I was successful with, some of which I wasn't. As you can see, I was kicking around the idea of utility usage. It's been a funny couple of years, given how much people have been using their weekend homes and things like that. There's really no great source for, that kind of town level data as far as I can see. So therefore I put in, I need some help here. I'm relatively new to the town and have not mastered the town hall as far as the records and file cabinets of that building, but I'm sure there's a tremendous amount of information. So I was going to put this in front of the committee, leave it with the committee, and say to you, build on it, help me with sourcing, add to it, and take it from there. It's, as you can see, it's fairly rudimentary, but this was my starting template.
If I could, Oscar, a lot of these are things that I were asking Janet in the beginning when I just started coming here. I think it's a combination of the two. I mean, the population is, that's so interesting as we talk about growing the town, right? Like what's the population change been year over year? Sales tax revenue for the Economic Development Committee, like what are we really trying to grow? Like I see a lot of value in these metrics, plus some of those softer metrics, which I can provide to you. I can provide you with social media metrics and who's looking at our town. Is it men or women? And are they clicking to our website or not clicking to our website? Where are they? Are they in New York or Cornwall or Connecticut? Or, there's another layer of metrics I can provide, but, these are all some really hard metrics that I've, been wondering about myself. So I see the power of both.
Okay.
One useful addition to the population metric could be beyond just sheer whether it's growing or shrinking. What is happening to the average age? Because that is one issue in our area. Is most of the towns as well as the county at an aggregate are over a decade above the national average in terms of age. So I feel like there is a certain degree of economic vitality, new families in the town that supports the school system as well as the price of.
And I was going to go to the Gordon, the Housing Committee, because I know they've done a lot of that. They've done a lot of that demographic work. I mean, I've seen some of those presentations. I think it all exists, and I think it's pretty real time. So that was going to be a natural resource for that kind of stuff.
That would be interesting. And the shift from weekenders to full-timers, that we've all been talking about on these calls, would be interesting if we can get any data about that. The schools are beginning to put out some really useful data about, the number of pupils in classes and the pipelines and things. That all comes through the Board of Finance.
One other observation, and this may be a little bit too philosophical for this call, but this is now my third meeting, but what I find really interesting is we have this sort of balance between resident and internal activity and programming and objective, juxtaposed to sort of the external programming and what we're really trying to draw people in and generate commerce and interest and attract people to be the engine of growth. And maybe where I'm sort of spitballing here, but where I land on this is what I'm doing initially is more of the internal baseline existing community. What Neil and the website and the social media is really more the external, and we sort of can run parallel paths with them and see, sort of build a combined report card for the committee.
Well, giving you a report card from the street, people on the ground, a limited number of retail people in this meeting. The last 3 weeks, the month of March, harks back to pre-COVID day. It is incredibly quiet. There's no traffic. There's limited people. These are the worst 3 weeks since before COVID. That's okay, though. I'm happy with that. I mean, it means that COVID is at least people are acting in a way that they don't believe COVID is around. So they're doing something else. They're not in Cornwall. They're in New York. They're in Florida. They're in
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Europe. They're in Mexico. Whatever. They're somewhere else. They're not.
Coincides with I just came from New York and I've been in Midtown, and I've been back since April of 21. So I've been a full year, and this has easily been the most normal it's been in that year. And everyone's back in school, and this is the 2-week, 3-week spring break period. So all those weekenders that were living up here full time are not here. They are in Florida. They are in Mexico.
Yeah.
So it is a bit of a double-edged sword.
I mean that is, and that's okay. I don't necessarily want to hear of this, but because that wouldn't be so good. But I can understand that several weeks. It's the month of March. It typically is. Well, I think it's the cruelest month, even though someone else thinks April's the cruelest month, but that's a different discussion. It is interesting to see, though, that has transpired, and all the people, as you're saying, Oscar, that they're somewhere else. They're in New York.
But I think there's two. This is a bit off of the agenda item, but I think we have a window here because there's two definitive trends that I think will carry on for at least 6 to 12 months, and that is the local wanderlust that people developed during COVID. They were comfortable going upstate, across the river, into New England, whatever. I think that will still very much stay in place, and I think people are already I've already heard about people postponing European trip plans for obvious reasons. So I think we've still got time to capture that, and that dovetails a little bit with the events committee, making sure we've got a full slate for the next 6 months through the summer. But also back to my hero Neil, everybody is technologically literate now. There's no excuse. COVID forced everybody to get comfortable with their cell phone, their internet, apps, and the like. And so we just have to keep pushing that.
No, I would agree with you. I'm not downplaying any of the actions that have been discussed or where the EDC is going in any way. And my specific information is, the last 20 or 30 days, whatever time frame, whatever it is, and it just indicates that a certain phase of COVID has wound down, and we're into the next phase of that. There are other issues that can occur, of course, and COVID came on somewhat unexpectedly. So I do think that this is a momentary point in time, and that spring and summer will bring lots of people returning to these hills.
So Oscar, just to follow up on your thing, I think what I'll do is I'll send you Janelle Mullen, who is the town planner. She used to work for the Council of Governments, and she's very much has fingertips on a lot of data for the town that's available. And I think she'd probably be the best person that could get you town data and is aware of these current trends that are, every year is going to be different. But she lives in Cornwall. She's good. She's in touch with other towns and in touch with trends throughout Connecticut. So I think she would be a good source on a lot of these new trends and what's going on. To Arnon's point, Cornwall and Salisbury had the biggest growth in the 2020 census of any towns in Litchfield County. And Salisbury, which was the oldest town in the state, actually was one of the few towns that saw a significant decrease in their average age. So again, having some of those things, which she probably can get you, is average age, population, because the health district also tracks people. And then you can, some things I also look at is how many responding members are there in the fire department, what's the school enrollment, these kind of things tell you a lot about what's going on in the town. The school enrollment is sort of plateaued, but it's above where it was pre-COVID. So, again, I think my feeling is we're in a much more competitive environment now than we were last year, as far as we're going to have to compete for people to come here, to live here. People are going to be moving around. People are pent up. People are moving around. So, but I think we're well positioned also with having like the restaurant opening in West Cornwall in May. That by itself is going to fill a huge gap in coming to Cornwall. So I think the committee, should go overtime saying, hey, there's some place to eat at these hours in West Cornwall. They're going to have a soft opening early May. Blah, blah, blah. And again, there's other things in the pipeline that we're on a roll. So I think seeing where we were 5 years ago.
That would be hugely helpful. I'll send this to Simon and then maybe he can.
And she's good.
Share it around.
She'll give you a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and if people can sort of pile on and add their 2 cents, and that'll give me a body of work to then actually put something that's usable.
And I think planning and zoning also wants to look every year, where are we? Are we really achieving what we're all saying we're trying to working towards? They want to see some real numbers as opposed to all, I believe. Also, we look at tonnages of garbage at the dump. That is a reflection of how much human activity is going on.
I thought about that one as well. I know there's been talk.
And how many, I think Richard business is a bellwether as far as who's here, and because most people are here are consumed. So, again, there are some bellwether businesses that would be interesting to see year to year.
You could create the Cornwall Package Store Economic Indicator.
I call it the Bramley Curve.
Exactly.
I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything unique to what my curve would be. I think it just is an indicator. It would probably be similar to the gas station or the
dump.
The store, the general store. I think there's just an ebb and flow to things that happen, and the current ebb is okay because you can only flow at 100 miles an hour for so long. It's okay to have an ebb. It's okay to have a March slowness. If it's in June or July, that's a different story, and that's a different problem. And it does give the board different things to be able to focus on. It's just momentary. That's the, what I'm talking about is just sort of momentary point in time where I think members Oscar is looking at are trends moving in direction, and that's a much more important indicator of where things are going.
If I could just say one last thing, I mean, I think, part of the motivation for me to join this committee is I look at Cornwall Bridge and I see, a commercial pocket that is a bit disjointed. It's awkward in its layout, and yet it has, at least in the wintertime, hundreds of cars passing by on its way to Mohawk on a given day. And if we're successful, we will, hopefully create a more vibrant and attractive Cornwall Bridge. I'm not going to get into the urban planning part of it, but if in fact there is something to replace the fly shop and there's a bit more reasons for a car to stop, that's going to help you. I mean, that's going to help the whole every storefront in that. Right now, unless they're looking to buy Fireball on their way back from the mountain, they're not stopping.
Yep.
Good point.
May I ask,
Thank you.
may I ask a general and sort of related question to what Oscar was just saying? Thinking about new businesses, and I know obviously Three Guys has been, maybe coming up on 2 years, and they seem to be doing quite well. But when we think about these new businesses coming, and I think Susie's Bakery is maybe coming soon. I don't know the details. Obviously, everyone knows about Frank's, but is there something that this committee should do to reach out specifically to those new businesses? Besides, clearly, Neil will work his magic on social media, but is there anything else that, we as a committee would always sort of think about as a new business is, getting to that grand opening moment? And should that be something that, I don't know, we offer support, or just find out what they need?
Yeah, we've done that in the past, and I think we've certainly tried to be helpful to the restaurant that replaced the Wandering Moose. I think that's a very good point.
I think if you can focus on supporting not just new businesses, but the ones that are here, like, having Northeast Builders anchor Cornwall Bridge through this whole period is huge. And I would like to see the committee spread out into Cornwall Bridge as a focus, and there's new energy there. But just having, to profile some of these places when we do have an event, if we can do a town-wide thing to celebrate these businesses, have open houses. They used to have a Cornwall Northeast Builders used to have a tent sale on Columbus Day weekend, and again, putting big tents up there got people to stop. Again, there's something that could be done relatively quickly, and again, say these are the new businesses, come and visit, and here's some of the established ones you've heard about, because some of these are doing really well, and it'd be good just drawing more people to say, hey, this is what's here as part of that event. I think would be great.
Yeah, I also
Thank you. That's good.
I think
Gary?
communicating with those businesses so they know what we as a town are doing to support them, so that we're accountable to them, and also creating a forum where we can understand, like to your point, what it is that they're doing. You have a tent sale here, you're doing this there, so we can then promote those things. Just creating a dialogue with the businesses, I think would be very helpful.
We did talk earlier about potentially having one or two of the businesses join us, these EDC meetings, to talk about their business. Bianca, you were behind that.
Right.
Which I thought was rather an interesting idea. Maybe we should push on that one again.
Right, to let them know that, because sometimes too, it's good to listen into these meetings. But I think also the fact that we record them gives businesses an opportunity to listen in and to watch at their own time, because everybody's so busy that often people don't have the time to participate, but at least they get an idea of what we're doing and that we are trying to reach out more to all the various different businesses, and to Gordon's point, to really also reach out more again to Cornwall Bridge, because it's an essential place. It has all the essential businesses that I mean, Northwest or Northeast Lumber. I think they've been there forever. The bank, collaborating with, if we can show this town collaborating with one another, every business, it makes it look wholesome to the outside, to the visitor. It makes it look like we are one happy family, even if we are not. I mean, we don't have to love each other, but respect and collaborate. And I think it always sort of gives the illusion that everything is just dandy, even if it's not. And who cares what's going on behind the scenes sometimes, but I think that's really important.
Thank you. Gary, you want to say something?
Yeah, this is leveraging much of the discussion. Recently, I was walking past Mohawk on a weekend and the car park was packed. And the thing we've been talking about is getting people to stop in Cornwall and people to stop and spend in Cornwall or be in Cornwall. Has there been in the past any outreach to Mohawk to network with the people coming to the ski resort to let them know what is in Cornwall? Because those people have come, and I assume the vast majority are non-Cornwallians. They've come to Mohawk, and I suspect the vast majority of them simply leave. But do they not know, or do they know of, this is here, Richard's shop, the food shop that's going to open, et cetera, et cetera?
I did speak to them when I first moved here, because I wanted to put cards out there. And so I did go over there and speak to them. At that time, they did not have a bulletin board or a table or something that was available to put town notices. They had, it really had to be related to Mohawk at that time. But perhaps that's something that could be approached again, and maybe they would be willing to change that policy, because I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, the largest vision I have of it is basically a threefold 8.5 by 11 that has all the businesses, a map of Cornwall, and
well, we made that map. We have the Cornwall map.
Visit Cornwall map. I know.
But we didn't want us to put anything out, so we need to talk, and maybe they would change their mind on that.
Great, if we could reach out to them. Okay.
What are you thinking, Gary? We're taking on that car window screen.
That's exactly it.
Might not be the worst thing.
It's a takeaway. It's a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
Someone's leaving the ski resort at 5 o'clock. Oh, I can get something to eat, or I have this in the future. It's a complement to online, internet, social media. It's the physical in the glove compartment, though no one carries gloves anymore.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Bill.
I suspect that there might be, and I don't know obviously, but I suspect that they might sort of operate in a certain amount of a resort mentality where they want to sort of keep people there, certainly for food and beverage, right? And then also for even honestly in terms of merchandise sales. So I think they would probably be interested in people not going to ski and ride, and probably not going to the restaurants. Unfortunately, I suspect during their operating season that they see themselves more as a competitor. I could be wrong, and somebody could see this meeting from Mohawk and tell me like, oh my God, that's totally not true. We want them to sort of indulge in the rest of the local businesses, but I would suspect that there's an element of that, as you would think naturally there would be.
I have a question.
But
I have a question about another way around that. I know if you're driving up Route 7 towards just outside Falls Village, there's a little sign, quite a tasteful little sign, that just says Falls Village Flower Farm and an arrow that shows you where to turn. And I'm not big on putting signs all over the place, but maybe a sign that says something like, I don't, business district sounds like a funny term, but maybe if we can't have something right there, there could just be one or two small tasteful signs that would direct people towards Cornwall Bridge and West Cornwall.
I think that's a good idea, because I think my guess is that a lot of the people who've been going to Mohawk recently have been under the impression there is nowhere to eat in Cornwall. So they've probably got the wrong, that idea pretty fixed at the moment. They wouldn't think of going out. Whereas come next year, once these various initiatives that we're talking about come up, it sounds like there's going to be a variety of places to go, and we need to make sure these people know about it one way or the other.
Say food and shops or something.
Yeah, or maybe advertising somewhere.
I think the way to approach it is they have their own marketing people. And I think if you can say, it's not like what you can do for us, but what we can do for you, we've got this Powerhouse Explore Cornwall thing. We're already promoting Mohawk. We'd like to dovetail with their marketing, which we do. And then you say, well, we're doing this, here's the thing. So if they can promote Explore Cornwall, you've got it. And again, it's a symbiotic relationship, because we want to promote them as well. And they have some new people there in the marketing department. So whoever wants to take on that project, I can find out. Because originally, Carol Lugar, who I believe still owns the mountain, she was an early member of this committee. So we have ways to get in on that. Arnon, I don't know if you have any.
I was just going to say I think there is probably an element of truth to Bill's point, so I'm not trying to discredit it, but to exactly what you're saying, I was like,
they have marketing people that are really interested in, because they're having some great years too, but they're still in business, so they got to be competitive.
Yeah, and Mohawk has always been a friend of Cornwall, so while I'm sure there's an element of what was described, like when I was a little kid and Four Corners was still making pizzas and all that stuff, so many people picked up pizzas on the way to and from Mohawk. Mohawk order like dozens of pizzas a weekend and stuff like that. There's definitely an opportunity for synergy. It's just there's been a lull where for almost a decade you haven't been able to get food in Cornwall. Really, you were just looking to Kent or wherever was the first stop on your way home. So we have kind of an opportunity here to sell these new businesses and help support them, and then we also have an opportunity to revitalize something that definitely has existed in the past.
And I think it's I have a 17 or 19-year-old. Everything they do is on Instagram and Snapchat. A lot of what we're talking about today is analog, and we really need to train our guns on the digital, and we're doing a great job. But flyers on windshields is that's not how people think these days. They're hungry and they know they're leaving at 4 o'clock. They're going to pick up their phone. Where can I go in Cornwall to get a pizza? Right. And that's how they're going to do it. And so I think 80% of what we need to be doing is digital. And we need everyone on this committee to be pointing all of their friends and family to like everything that is Cornwall related on Instagram and get them to follow it. The power of compounding with likes, and I mean, Neil, you can back me up here. It's you get 10 more likes and suddenly you got 100, and it just builds and builds. And so getting a tie in Mohawk so that there's when you go to their website's not great. Their app site is not great, but things to do in Cornwall. That's what we should strive for. There should be a button on the Mohawk website that says places to eat in Cornwall, places to shop. That's what we should be striving for.
I think that's a great idea, Oscar, and I could actually contact them on that.
I think the thing that's good about Mohawk, or that's unusual about Mohawk, they're not a 4-season resort, so they definitely have a downtime. I mean, they're all worn out at this point, but come June, July, August, they have plenty of downtime thinking about next season. Sold out of their season passes, so they're in pretty good shape. But I think contacting them in June or something when they're not flat out is, I bet that I'll try to find you the right person to talk to there.
I have it, Gordon. I've been talking to them, not about this, but we've been cross promoting on social the whole season, And I think this idea of what to do in Cornwall on the website is really strong, and I could certainly talk to those folks about that.
Good.
Great. Okay, just moving along, because I'm conscious of time. Improve connectivity. Gary, I think we're just sort of watching what's happening. Gently, are you putting in the cabinets now?
I'm bouncing that to Gordon.
Yeah, well, they've applied to put in their cabinets, and they're talking about stringing fiber this year. Got a couple of people that are working with to develop a bunch of questions for Optimum. And yeah, full speed ahead.
Thank God. Excellent, thank you. Let's see. Bianca, the text and design for the posters, which you've distributed to members of the commission. Does anyone have any comments, disagreements with what was in? I thought they were rather nicely done.
Thank you.
Who's up?
Oh. Thank you.
Good. Is there anything we need to, specifically, is there anything we need to do other than agreeing?
No.
That, Bianca?
Just to, I'll take them to have them printed and install them when the weather gets a little bit balmier, because they're adhesive, and we'll do it ourselves to save money.
Okay.
And yeah, they
Good.
should be up probably by April.
Thank you. And then here we are, the recommendation to have Matt be the representative to the Western Connecticut Tourism Board. Gordon, do we have the ability to appoint someone or to recommend someone to that?
Well, we
Is
have,
it something we're interested in?
there is a commission, Western Connecticut thing, and the selectmen did appoint Bob Ensign to that from Bob's West Cornwall Bike. And I'm not sure where they're at. They had organizational challenges. The whole tourism promotional thing has been a bit of a horror story as far as contraction on the state level. So we did ask Bob if he'd do it a couple of years ago, and then COVID started. So that's as far as I know about that. I don't know what the structure is at this point. It seemed we used to have the Litchfield Hills, and then became Western Connecticut, and then it was everything west of the river. So the state really contracted it. But I know that at the same time, the state has done more statewide things. So I'm not sure what the structure is, and then at this point.
But it's presumably helpful.
And I'm not sure what Bob, Bob certainly is a great ambassador to the town, for the town. And I don't know what the status is. That whole group is.
So this whole thing had been brought to me by someone here in town, that looking at the minutes from meetings, there are regular meetings going on again. And in particular, they are also in the Western Connecticut Tourism District talking about social media, cross-promoting and all of that. But there hasn't been anyone from Cornwall attending any of these meetings. So that's what brought me to the thought, well, maybe it would be even great to have someone from this commission to be on the board, because then we can cross-reference, and really someone who actually lives in this town, because I think it could benefit us. I had talked to Renee Betar, who is in Litchfield, and she had actually commented to the fact that since they had been reconnected to the tourism board, Litchfield was greatly benefiting from that dialogue. And I think we could too, because tourism is a huge engine in this state. I mean, if we don't tap that, we're losing out.
Do you want to hook up with Bob then, Bianca, and find out?
I talked with him, and he had not been attending. So, and he would not be upset if someone else was taking that over. So I don't know.
Do you want to proceed on this, Gordon?
I think it's a loose end at this point. I've got to get my bike tuned up, so I'll check in about
Yeah, that's good.
this point.
Great.
I mean, I appreciate Mayor. If Mayor's willing to do it, I think that'd be great. But again, out of courtesy, somebody volunteered to do it, and it's probably he's out there every day promoting Cornwall. So,
Makes sense. Is that okay with you, Bianca?
Oh, sure. No, I think that's fine.
Okay. Gordon, do you want to just give us the most rapid update on the treatment facility?
yeah, $3 million. That's it.
That's
The town. I mean, Congresswoman John Hayes called up on a week ago Friday and said that what we had hoped for came true, that included in the $1.5 trillion budget that the president, I think, signed, passed the House and Senate, included in that is $3 million to West Cornwall wastewater project. So we're working now on updating the cost estimates. We have an engineer. We're applying again for even more grants on top of that. Obviously, the costs have probably gone up since we've been at this. So we're working on that. We've got our, we've done a lot of work. We've got our bond counsel writing the explanatory text, which is the information that we're allowed to put out to people about this, and are fairly confident that we're going to, have town meeting and a vote on this townwide referendum after we pass our own budget in May. We'll probably start in on informational meetings and try to have a vote, by July. So it's a pretty aggressive schedule, knowing interest rates are going up, and cost of building materials are going up. So we want to push on this and just keep the momentum going. I think the timing's really good. And again, the town has never received $3 million grant for anything. I think the timing's very good. I think, as we said, this will have regional significance as well as local significance, keeping the momentum going. That's about it. So, I mean, we on the town level are going to be very busy in the next couple of months, getting that information together, putting it out, and hopefully having a good turnout for the vote. But again, having that whole process will probably take a month or two to get through the meetings, voting process. But right now, the committee's done a lot of work. We have an engineer who's familiar with West Cornwall. He can update his costs. Hopefully, in the next week or so, and then we'll be able to plug in the financial implications of that, which are looking favorable, increasingly favorable.
Well, congratulations. I think that's wonderful. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, that's big news.
Great. No, it is. Priscilla, do you have any news for us? Janet, do you have anything?
The only thing that's I guess the big news is that we are working with community health and wellness to bring primary care to Cornwall. That looks to be happening. I think the date was May 6th, if I'm remembering correctly. So we have another couple meetings, but there will be 2 spots that will be having that availability. One in West Cornwall and one likely in Cornwall Village, probably at the library, but that's a conversation that has to happen. I was going to call Margaret about that. So, there's also an advanced practice registered nurse who has a mobile business and is interested in working with Cornwall. So we've got kind of 2 outlets for primary care. And looking down the pike, there's some other interesting opportunities as far as medical goes. So yeah, stay tuned. But there's going to be primary care in Cornwall, my friends.
Great, well done.
At no cost to the town, by the way.
What?
And at no cost to the town.
Fabulous.
Yep, and they'll
Also-
take all kinds of healthcare. So they'll take Medicaid, Medicare, private pay. For people who have none of the above, there's a sliding scale that's very, very favorable to those people. But then we'll have an opportunity to get those folks signed up for healthcare that they can afford.
Terrific.
All right.
The other thing going on too, that's, there's all this stuff that's happening. It's all different. It's exciting. We're going to start this spring. They're going to designate signage for the US Bike Route 7, which is also on Route 7, primarily on Route 7, but it goes through town up Route 4, 125, and then up River Road in West Cornwall. But anyway, that's part of the West New England Greenway, which is a bike trail that goes from New York to Montreal, and we will have signage to be on that. So that's another big deal for another whole area of, I think potential growth, and the fact that we have not one but two bike stores in town in the middle of all that is pulling us together as a recreational center. And so there'll be some stuff to put out about that when those signs go up. Another little
When's that
little
going to
thing.
When are they going up?
Probably in May, I would think,
Great.
something like that. So there'll be little signs with bikes on them in Cornwall, and there'll be people coming from a long way to bike the Western New England Greenway,
Excellent.
going to Cornwall Bridge in West Cornwall.
Thank you. Thank you, Gordon. And with that, first of all, I just like to say it's terrific to see so many members of the public on this call. Does any of you have any comments you want to raise or suggestions or whatever? Nancy?
Of course, I have something. This is really for some of you who are new, but Cornwall, our wonderful finance person, Barbara Herbst, puts out every year an annual town report for Cornwall. You can find so many metrics in here. If you haven't read it, it makes great reading. It really does. You'll really feel thankful that you live in a town like Cornwall. And Barbara puts a lot of time and energy, and every one of the commissions has reports in here. Did you know that we have 15 justices of the peace in Cornwall, and that 12 new babies were born last year? The school has a huge report. I'm probably talking to the choir, but pick this up. They're free down at Vera's office.
Go ahead. Thanks, Nancy. Anyone got anything else?
Me? What? No.
Okay. That, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion, adjourned.
Excellent.
Second.
Thank you,
Second.
Bianca. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, guys. See you on April the 26th.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks,
Au revoir.
everyone.
À demain.